Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association demands I give them my 200-year-old valuable farm property and offer me a laughable $3,000 for it. When I refuse to comply with their demands, they start to get violent and eventually shoot me. You know what they say, never mess with a farmer. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. So I own a 200-year-old farm that my family has run for roughly 100 of those years. It is a decent chunk of land where I do a little bit of everything you would expect on a farm. I have a barn with some animals, fields with crops, and even an area where I keep bees. It is not one of those giant farms, but I'm proud of what I do and the fact that I can keep certain products in the area local and at a decent price. Additionally, since I cannot do everything on my own, my farm provides job opportunities for people. Near me are mostly residential homes and an HOA formed with them a little while back. I was never asked to join and I didn't want to anyway, so I never questioned if I was even within their range. I never even met the HOA president before until one day when he just showed up at my door out of the blue. He seemed friendly enough at first with introductions and then he dropped his bomb on me. HOA president said, "We are trying to expand the residential sector of the HOA and the neighborhood in general. And for this we are looking for your cooperation." Me, what would you need my help for? I don't really know anything about that kind of stuff. HOA president, "We did the math and figured that we can fit about a dozen new homes within your property. That would gain the HOA a nice sum in yearly dues and cause the neighborhood to prosper." Me, you came over here to try and get me to sell my farm? You do realize that without my farm, the nice local fresh ingredients you and everyone else enjoys would be gone, right? Not to mention the local people being out of work from me closing and selling. HOA president, "You misunderstood. We don't want you to sell your farm, which could take way too long. We want you to just sign over the rights to the land to me and then I will handle things from there. You can go live with relatives or something." Me, you must be insane thinking that I'm just gonna hand over my land for free. Telling me to pack my bags and just walk out with nothing. HOA president, "I can see you're a smart man, so I'm gonna offer you a deal, but you must take it now. So, the HOA is willing to give you $3,000 as a parting gift to you. If you refuse, then I can tell our next encounter won't be so nice." They were literally offering me $3,000 for my property, which was not even for sale. Even if I did sell it, I would be getting way more money than that. I told him that he was not getting my property, and finally, the nice guy demeanor was gone. He told me that he warned me and that I should watch my back because they were gonna end up with the farm one way or another. I did not know what he meant, but I was not scared of this guy. A farm does not stick around for 200 years being run by people that back down at the first sign of trouble. It was about 2 weeks later when I was met with the HOA president again coming to my door. This time though, he did not have any words to say to me and instead he pulled out a gun at me. He shot it at me from around my gate and I was standing on my porch going to get my mail. I was lucky enough that this guy was a horrible shot and only managed to get me in the ear. Don't get me wrong, it hurt like hell, but I knew that it was not fatal or anything. What it did cause though was for me to get furious and storm headfirst at this dirtbag. He did not even try taking another shot and instead just stood there in shock as I barreled towards him. I had probably over 50 pounds on this guy, so maybe he was just scared. I hit him hard into the ground and just started punching like crazy. His face was a total mess by the time I stopped, and for your sake I won't go into detail about how bad he looked, just know that I beat him to a pulp and mainly only stopped because I heard police coming to see what happened. I think one of my farmhands called them after the gun went off. Since he was the one bleeding on the ground, the police cuffed me until they could figure out the whole story. However, once they saw the gun still in his hand and my ear bleeding from being shot, they concluded that I was just defending myself. I was told that it was a bit excessive for self-defense, but until the HOA president was able to give a statement saying otherwise, they were not gonna cuff me anymore. Instead, I was able to go to the hospital and get treated, so nothing too terrible happened. Even the doctor said that I was lucky that this guy was a bad shot and as long as I kept the wound clean and took antibiotics for a week, everything should be fine. A small piece of my ear was missing, but it was at the edge, so not really a hole. When the HOA president woke up and was under arrest for shooting me, he was too scared to come up with a story. He just said that he shot me and then I ran over and started punching him. I'll admit that I could have had charges pressed against me and gotten in trouble, but thankfully I didn't. It was basically just labeled as self-defense fueled by the adrenaline of being shot. Meanwhile, the HOA president was in huge trouble and the entire HOA was now being looked at due to the incident. I thought he would be the only person getting arrested, but I was wrong because there was a ton happening behind the scenes that I did not even know about. 5 members of the HOA were arrested in addition to him for fraud. They were not only stealing HOA funds for their personal use, but also using the HOA to filter their own money through. Basically putting their personal money and listing it as HOA money so they could not get taxed on it. Federal tax fraud is serious, and doing that in addition to stealing money was a bad combination, let me tell you. I guess I understand now why he was so intent on getting free land, because he was probably gonna say the HOA bought it and then steal more money. Anyway, these guys were all arrested and that was the last time I ever heard from this HOA. I think the neighborhood still has some kind of an HOA, but I've not heard from their new neighbors and I'm pretty content with that. They can go do their own thing and I can stay where I am and keep running my farm. If anybody wants another fight about my farm, I suggest they look at what happened to the last guy that tried to take it from me. And here, Ripe Stars, as seasoned veterans of Reddit, we of course all know that you should never mess with a farmer, as well as never mess with any veterans. Otherwise, you might end up on the ground being beaten to a pulp just like this stupid HOA president. If you like the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video, and now let's move on to the next story. The next one is titled Petty Revenge Done Right. I want to note that I hate Airbnb and I think a majority of the hosts have no business being hosts. I've had some bad experiences and I have avoided using them the past 4 years. Someone gifted me an Airbnb gift card and I had it in my possession for over 2 years. I thought, okay, it's been 4 years, wounds heal, and maybe I can try it again and finally use this gift card. Also, I'm not a Karen and I rarely leave bad reviews. Normally, I try to be very understanding of situations and not vengeful, but this experience had too many issues for me to ignore. I planned a vacation to Canada and found a listing. It was a condo, 4.5-star rating, 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. Price seemed okay and it had a designated underground parking space available for our car rental. I booked the place and did not think too much of it. 3 days before my reservation, the owner sent me instructions on how to access the place, the parking garage, etc. There is a note in his instructions: the property does not permit short-term rentals like Airbnb, and if anyone asks, I should lie and say that I'm staying for a month. Okay, whatever, shady stuff you wanna do, fine with me if I don't get into any legal trouble here. So I had no problems locating the condo and letting myself in using the instructions provided. However, there was a slew of other problems that I don't think I should have had to deal with. Number 1. The underground garage key button did not work though, and cars would come in and out of the underground parking. No matter what I pressed on the garage key, it would not work. I then messaged the owner who said try this, try that, get closer, and I fiddled with this thing for an hour. I ended up parking on the street, but that was permitted for overnight parking. Overall, I spent like 3 hours on this dumb garage key issue during the whole trip. His solutions were, go replace the battery on the garage key button, but I did not have a screw to free the battery from inside the garage key. I was also a bit annoyed that I had to spend my vacation time fixing an issue with this stupid thing. He would send someone over, well, that person never came and he changed his mind 4 hours later to send someone. He suggested I park in a paid parking lot a one-way 15-minute walk away from the condo. I would have to spend 30 minutes a day walking to and from my vehicle. He would pay for parking but nothing else. I suggested he pay for an Uber each day or give me a discount for the time I'm losing each day, but he wouldn't. A big reason I booked this Airbnb was because of the parking spot. Number 2, why am I paying a cleaning fee? The condo itself was not clean, just the toilet was clean I think, and the floor was swept. The carpet floors had human hair all over it, gathering up around the corners and around the bed. The beds were made, but the bed sheets were not washed. You can smell body odors on it. There was a washer and dryer in the condo, so we threw all of the bed sheets, pillow covers and towels into the wash. It took about 4 hours to get through all of that laundry. Number 3, the TV that sits on a TV stand was flimsy and broken. If you put any weight on the side of the TV stand, the top portion of it will dislodge and the TV will topple over. Which it did, and a 15-year-old flat-screen TV was broken. I took responsibility and replaced it with a brand new one. And of course he was fine with that. I did not blame him, but I did inform him that the stand was broken and I sent him a video of it, and he said he sees nothing wrong with it. Number 4. While I was replacing the TV, I also took the garage key with me and replaced the battery. The garage key still does not work. I sent him the receipt for the battery purchase and my PayPal information. I had to message this guy 3 times until he randomly sent me a wire transfer using Canada banks that I couldn't accept. And I could not accept the money because I have a US bank. He was just like, too bad. Well, anyway, I had to take it up with Airbnb, who reimbursed me. After all of that, the Airbnb host said his cleaning lady tried the garage key and she was able to get it to work by standing really close to the garage hub box. I'm not sure what it's called. I don't see the point in him saying that, but whatever. I left him a bad review on Airbnb, but I just did not think it was enough. So here comes my revenge. I remembered on the first day of my stay, someone knocked on our door and asked who we were. I lied according to the host instructions that we were visiting from out of town and staying a month. I looked up the property management company of that building and emailed them. I informed them of his instructions to lie, shared the Airbnb listing link and specified what unit it was. I got a response a few days later and the property management said it was unacceptable and they will be speaking to the owner. I'm not sure what the outcome is. I will check in a few weeks to see if the listing is still up. Let's see if I shut down his Airbnb business. Update to the story. I just got an update from Airbnb that the listing got removed. Additionally, I got a very angry response from the owner of this property asking how dare I destroy his business and that he will kick my ass if he ever sees me again. Karma strikes back, I would say. And yeah, ripe stars, I am so happy that this douchebag got what he deserved. If you ever had any bad experiences with Airbnb, please feel free to let us know in the comments because I would love to hear about them. And the next one is a story from r/ProRevenge. After university in late 2018, I fell on rough times and was forced to move back to my hometown. I tried to transfer my job to a branch in my area, but I failed and thus I needed to get a new job. I settled for a 20-hour-a-week job at a Bookies with a second bartending job in the evenings. The Bookies is the target for my revenge, which was entirely accidental. Involved are the following: Janelle, my manager's manager, Shay, my manager, George and Jordan, my co-workers, and Kara, a co-worker at another store. I ended up working behind the counter as a customer service manager, basically a step up from a cashier. It's fancy when seen on a CV, but there's nothing really to it. I took bets, chatted with customers, helped people with machines, and for the vast majority of my shift, sat around waiting for something to do. I got on well with my co-workers, or so I thought, and had no major issues. It was a 20-hour-a-week, about £1 more than minimum wage, with a lot of overtime required of me and irregular shift patterns. Though I had no issue with the job beyond how difficult it was to juggle the schedules of both of my jobs. In February of 2019, after working for the company for 6 months, I was invited to a probation hearing. It can't be emphasized enough that it was a probation hearing in which I would have my performance reviewed and, as informed in training, was entitled to a pay raise at the end of it. I arrived that morning to a disciplinary hearing where, without even a shred of evidence, I was accused of 11 different cash discrepancies dating back to early November of 2018, shortly after I had started, which all amounted to £271. All but one of which I had never heard of before. These had apparently been reported and logged by my manager, Shay, and my co-workers despite no one saying a word to me at all. Not a whisper in the 5 months this apparently had been occurring. I was told that it was unacceptable, a call was made to HR, and I was terminated on the spot and forced to hand over my keys and to never set foot in the store again. To my protests, I was told the decision could not be appealed and I would eventually receive written confirmation of my employment's termination in the post. I did not let myself slump around and feel sorry for myself, so on the way home, I opened up Indeed and applied for a bunch of jobs and, before I arrived home, had an interview set up for the next week at what is my current place of work. Now I was furious. Fuming at having gone to what I thought should have been a normal probation meeting and having effectively been called a thief and been banned for life from a place I'd never go to anyway. But somehow my parents were angrier and ordered me to let them know when they got into contact with me again. Almost 2 weeks later, I received an email from the company's HR which reiterated the accusations and stated again that I was terminated. My mom sat me down in her kitchen and walked me through a letter response that was 2 parts professional and 3 parts scathing. Ripping into them about their unprofessional conduct, their ludicrous claims, their lack of evidence, the holes in their story, because there were quite a few, and finally the cherry on the cake, the employment laws they had broken. Now, I did not want much, just a nice reference, a promise that not a whisper of these accusations would turn up when my new job asked them for a reference, because by then I had already been offered the job. I then attached the letter to an email to fire back at their HR department. Then I added Janelle's work email, then her boss's email, and finally the holding company that owned the brand, because I wanted to make sure this was seen. Also a bit of background, the bookies I worked for is a brand that is owned by an international company. Their name behind the scenes is slapped on everything and they pretty much dictate everything we did. I'm not sure if holding company is the correct term, but I'll stick to that for now. Anyway, I sent this email with a 48-hour window for a response. I received a reply the next day from the same email that my demands were being met. I smirked victoriously and moved on with my life, happy to wash my hands with the entire ordeal. However, I had set off a chain reaction that I would not know about until 3 months later. 3 months on, I had settled into my new job, a call center position with double the hours and well over double the pay. I had gone through training and was settling into my new position when I see a new set of trainees settling in near my team. Among them was Gordon, one of my co-workers from the bookies, and I was stunned. Gordon had been at the bookies for 6 years when I joined. He was well liked, good at his job, and a favorite of the managers. There was no way he'd been fired, though I didn't really want to talk to him as I was of the impression that he, George, and my manager had likely set me up. I did want to know what happened. Luckily, on seeing me in the break room one shift, he sought me out and told me everything. Apparently my email had been read by the higher-ups in the holding company and had caused a lot of scrutiny to fall onto the bookies in our town, of which there were 3 in our area that Janelle was responsible for, 2 in my room and a 3rd in a neighboring one. Someone in HR passed a message down to the area manager, Janelle's boss, claiming they wanted things investigated and they wanted results yesterday, causing him to drop everything and descend on our little town with the panic and aggression of a man whose superiors were watching his every breath. He went to Janelle wanting to know why he hadn't been made aware previously that I was apparently stealing money, why I had been given keys to the shops and shifts on my own when allegations of that nature were attributed to me, and why I had not been put under investigation. It turns out that Janelle had in fact put in my employee file that I was under investigation, but had never actually gone through with any of the official procedures for monitoring and investigating me. Shock horror. And thus she had fired me for the accused crime without looking into it at all, falsely claiming otherwise. And thus the area manager took the dates and amounts of the cash discrepancies, confirmed that they had been reported on those days without my knowledge in Shay's own logbook of the shop's cash, and sent that information onto our security team to investigate. Another little detail is that the CCTV for every shop in the brand is outsourced to a private security company who monitors each shop remotely and has access to all the cameras and video. As was procedure, they looked into the dates mentioned to see if I'd been doing anything untoward. I know I wasn't, and nothing was ever said to me. However, they did find something. It turns out money was going missing from the shop, but surprise surprise, it was not me, but George and Shay. They not only set me up for reasons I will never know, but were also falsifying numbers and cash checks on the system to hide it. One thing Shay was caught doing was deliberately shortchanging customers by taking portions of their winnings without them even knowing. Bear in mind, a lot of our customers were elderly men and women. Gordon claims that he once opened the door after I and Shay had closed the night before and noticed a cash difference, but had been told not to say anything to me as I was under investigation and it could compromise it. He did apologize and then I let it go. George and Shay were fired, but it does not end there. Our team was small, including me. There were a total of 4 people working at the store. As they had not been able to hire anyone to replace me, George and Shay's termination meant Gordon was the only employee at the busiest shop in our area. Even if they had been able to get other colleagues from the 2 other shops to help out, it would not have been enough to keep the shop open and manage the amount of customers. So they closed the location down until they could get the staff to run it. It was at that point that Gordon handed in his resignation and applied for his job at my work, meaning they had now no one. On top of that, Gordon's girlfriend worked in the same shop as Janelle, and she relayed that she was rarely at their store in the other town for the next few weeks before the area manager reported that she was fired as well. No reason given to her. I was later issued an apology for everything by the area manager and informed she, Janelle, was no longer with the company in an email sometime later, but somehow it does not end there. With the store I worked at closed, this one being on the high street and where most people prefer to go, the only other location in the town was the much smaller location in the suburbs, the one where Kara worked. And she worked alone. She suddenly received an influx of customers into her tiny store space and absolutely no support from other staff or upper management. Thus, for her own mental health, having already been overworked and underpaid, running an entire store by herself, she quit, meaning that location had to be closed too. All of this at the worst possible time in March when the Cheltenham Festival was occurring, which by the way is a huge moneymaker for the gambling industry even in a small town like ours. An opportunity the 3 other bookies on the high street reaped the benefits of instead of my old place, as the former customers went to them instead. As it currently stands, just over a year later, both shops remain closed and I am currently entering a job in cybersecurity, the training for which I paid for with my current job. Thanks for firing me, idiots, you did me a favor. Update to the story, Gordon and I got in touch with our old area manager and we were able to get a bit more information. So the security team rifled through about 3 years worth of footage after they found out about George and Shay and have estimated that in that period alone, they both stole nearly £4,000 through various means. The parent company also got involved and searched through years worth of their cash checks and till checks and noted plenty of irregularities. The parent company pursued criminal charges and the 2 were arrested, but as far as our area manager knows, the case is still ongoing. He thinks it's because they are still looking into how much they actually stole, as they've both been there a while, George about 8 years and Shay about 10. I doubt they'll have security footage of all that time, but I bet they are trying to get a more accurate figure to really nail them. And then in comes a new character called Tammy, obviously not her real name. This person is an employee who was hired and fired shortly before I was at the same store. She lasted just past her probation before she was fired, wait for it, for months worth of cash differences and false till checks she was not made aware of prior. However, her situation is far worse than mine. Tammy is in the process of suing the company for wrongful termination alongside financial and emotional damages, as she was put under a lot of stress whilst in the job by Shay, who apparently left her to fend for herself and would refuse to step in when customers got aggressive and then had a miscarriage shortly after her employment was terminated. Our area manager does not know anything more, as it is escalated and gone way above his head, and I doubt I'll be able to get any more info on it. But I doubt the company is doing too well on that front, and I wish her the best. Gordon and I are considering reaching out to some of the other fired employees, of which he can name a few who were terminated for similar reasons, to get their side of things. But it seems very clear that what Shay and George are doing was going on for a long time, and I was only the latest scapegoat. Janelle, unfortunately, is perfectly fine as far as I'm aware. Her husband and her opened a taxi company several years ago, and she seems to have just gotten more involved with that. I haven't seen her, so I wouldn't know, but she was terminated for gross misconduct and for not following procedure, which is kind of what I expected. And Kara, who our area manager actually really dislikes but is lovely and did not deserve what she went through, is doing okay. I've messaged her and she and her partner recently bought a house. She also got a job as an event manager at a local historical site. She is happier there as she actually has people to talk to at work and is not alone anymore. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to check out my playlists for more awesome videos. Also, if you haven't already, I would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to not miss any videos. Thank you so much. I will see you again tomorrow.